This is session 9 of the Sheltered Instruction Training. In this session, we're going to learn about and discuss the fifth component of SIOP, interactions, and we're going to watch a video on the first part of interactions.
In this session, we will discuss the component interaction of the SIOP model. Let's review the 8 SIOP components. Today we will discuss the 4 features of interaction. Those features are number 16, frequent opportunities for interaction and discussion. 17, grouping configurations support the content and language objectives. 18, sufficient wait time for student responses are consistently provided. And 19, ample opportunity for students to clarify key concepts in L1. Our objectives for today, content objectives, are to select from a variety of activities that promote interaction and understand the purpose of student-to-student interaction for language development. Our language objectives: to write and discuss use of strategies in the classroom, describe strategies to reduce the amount of teacher talk in a lesson, identify resources to support student clarification in native language or L1, list grouping configurations, and reflect on strategies to increase wait time. So what are the benefits of interaction? It increases the use of academic language. It improves quality of student talk. It encourages elaborated responses, provides an oral rehearsal, helps individualize instruction, encourages those reluctant learners to participate, allows for written interaction with dialogue journals, and it promotes a positive social climate. Let's take a look at that first feature of interaction, frequent opportunities for interaction and discussion. Research shows that classes are characterized by excessive teacher talk. When students were asked to respond, it was usually only simple recall statements. Students learn more when participating fully in discussing the ideas or the new information. ELLs need the most opportunities to practice using English language. And we need to encourage elaboration. What do you mean by? What else? So plan for those probes. Once ELs have answered correctly, ask them to expand and elaborate. What is the relationship between the following numbers? 240, 1,950. There is an increasing struggle to get level 4 proficiency students to increase to a level 5, not only in Perry Township, but across the state of Indiana. Many of our 4s predominantly spend the day in a mainstream classroom, sometimes with a smaller portion of the day in an EL classroom. These numbers reflect the amount of time an EL student may speak when pulled out into an EL classroom, or the amount they may speak if they're in a sheltered instruction classroom. So let's look at a 240 model. Teacher versus student talk time might look something like this. The teacher talks for 50% of the time, with a little bit of student interaction and the rest of the time spent on individual work. The 240 model might look like this. In a 1-hour class with 20 students, 10 minutes of your time might be spent on necessary explanations, and then another 10 minutes in lost time, which might consist of silences, paper distribution, or students taking out documents to write on. At that point, you have 40 minutes left for oral production. In that 40 minutes, it might be a simple question-answer technique where you're sharing that 40 minutes with your students. The students raise their hands, and then they speak one after the other. 25 of those minutes might be spent on repeating questions, making comments, or explaining incorrect answers. In this model, it allows the students to produce language for a little under 2 minutes at a time. In a class of 25, it's reduced to 1 minute for oral production. In a class of 30, it's 30 seconds. Now let's add that time up. Over a 6-year period of traditional instruction using the 240-minute model, 60 hours per year will give students only 3 hours of individual student speaking time. Let's take a look at the 1,950 model. It gives them time to answer. Some students need time to answer and process what you've said and asked. It also, don't answer every question yourself. Have you ever thought that maybe one student asks you a question, another student who's listening may know the answer? So have them do peer-to-peer interaction. Use pair or group work. Get students into pairs or small groups for activities and simply walk around to assist. Have them read or explain directions. Have one student read the directions to the class and another explain or rephrase if someone hasn't understood. Ask open-ended questions instead of yes-no questions. The more questions you ask with where, why, how often, when, the more they'll have to speak. Keep probing for more information. Say only what is necessary. It's easy to echo back what the students say. Cutting that time out gives them more time to interact. Don't tell, but elicit. Use hints, prompts, cues to get them to answer their own questions. Let's move on to feature 17 of the component interaction. Grouping configurations support the content and the language objectives. A balance of active and passive learning. It provides varying groups, and it provides opportunities to learn, discuss, and process new information, where they can critique or analyze, create graphic representations, or summarize material. And it should be meaningful and facilitate some interaction. Grouping configurations found in schools support the content and language objectives. And in many schools, ELs are grouped in low ability groups regardless of ability. So groups should support language and support the content objectives. Understanding where they need support in reading, writing, listening, or speaking by using the data from their ILP can support the language and the content standards. On this slide, let's take a look at some considerations when grouping. You need to consider the type of group. It could be random, voluntary, teacher assigned, homogeneous, or heterogeneous by gender, language proficiency, language background, or ability. You also need to consider how often you'll change those groups, the frequency, and how you will manage that. And what will your grouping sizes look like? Individuals, pairs, triads, small group, or whole? And finally, consider possible group roles for accountability. You could have a group recorder, a materials collector, a reporter, a final copy scribe, illustrator, timekeeper, cheerleader facilitator, monitor, or messenger. So as you can see, there are a number of ways and considerations for grouping. You need to consider the type of group, how often you change the groups or size, and the possible roles within the groups for accountability.
This is the end of session 9. Thank you.